1 p.m. Eastern. Next up for us, Baltimore Ravens 1-0 at the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off of a debacle. Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio, 71 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 8 miles per hour. Let's get into the line history here first and foremost. We're sitting here with a 3.5 at Pinnacle, 3.5 at -104. But this was a 3. This opened up at 3 Sunday at 7:58 p.m. And it was actually juiced towards the Ravens. It didn't move till 3.5 until 4:52 p.m. yesterday. And that's a big move from the 3 to 3.5. Let's take a look at the total then on this one. We're sitting at 46.5. Still a 47 at Pinnacle, but it's -118 to the under. This opened up at same time, 7:58 p.m. on Sunday night at 45.5. And within 2 hours and 23 minutes, it was down to 44.5. So the first initial move was to the under, and then it got hammered to the over. It got hammered to the over Monday early afternoon. It got hammered to the over, and there was a 2.5 point jump in the total from 11:30 on Monday morning to 10 to 12. The 20 minutes, it moved 2.5 points. I mean, that's somebody moved on the over that the books really respect. Let's move to the total here for this one. And the Bengals have 39% of the tickets and 72% of the cash. And that's a big move from 3 to 3.5. Then you have 59% of the tickets and 96% of cash on the under. I mean, we just dealt with this exact same thing in the what was the first spot? Was it the 96? Let me pull this up here. Yeah, it was that Falcon spot where you had 98% of the tickets on the over and the line had moved to the under. So that is a fascinating thing. A lot of different ideas on how we should handle the market and the information that we're getting from something like the Action Network and whether it should be fully trusted. It's another debate that we can have another time. Coin says Cincinnati -3.5. Newquarter says, was Cincy that bad or the Browns that good? Let's talk about the Ravens first. They come off a 25-9 win at home over the Texans. They closed as 9-point favorites. They were up just 7-6 at the half. We were both on the Texans, and it felt pretty good at halftime. Todd Monken's first game with the squad was not very good. There's a lot to improve. Lamar Jackson, 17-22 for 169 yards and a pick. He also ran 6 times for 38 yards. J.K. Dobbins, just sad. The Ohio State product. I mean, so this is, his first contract's going to be done. And how many games did he play? It's too bad. 8? I mean, it's just too bad. 8 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. Caught 2 passes for 15 yards before he tore his Achilles. Now he's out for the season. So that puts the onus on Gus Edwards and Justice Hill to carry the ground game moving forward. And Flowers was magic, man. First round pick, 22nd overall at Boston College, 9 catches for 78 yards, ran twice for 9 yards. I mean, he's dangerous. Odell Beckham, the book is still, I don't expect much from him this year. 2 catches for 37 yards. And obviously their offense is going to look stronger with Mark Andrews. And we all expect him to be available this week. He was a limited participant in the entire week of practice. So maybe when they announce that he's in, maybe we get back to the 3. Is that possible? That 3 is sure what you'd want to have if you're backing Cincy. They held the Texans 0-2 in the red zone. Roquan Smith was all over the field, 16 tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 sack. They finished with 5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. Marcus Williams left with the shoulder issue, and they're already missing Marlon Humphrey. So there's some issues in that secondary right now. And then Ronnie Stanley, looked like a knee injury. We're going to get information about that, and we need it because you definitely want Stanley there protecting left tackle Ronnie Stanley. So Bengals opened up their season with an embarrassing 24-3 loss at Cleveland. Zach Taylor, 0-5 versus the Browns. Burrow just can't seem to beat the Browns. Coming off that 5-year, $275 million extension, and he played the worst game of his career. 14-31 for 82 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. After missing a month with a calf strain, he lamented the missing time. He said that, he felt it. He wished that he had, an opportunity to play over the last, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Jamar Chase led receivers with 5 catches for 39 yards. Higgins, 0 catches despite being targeted 8 times. You got to think that there's an aberration. You just got to think he's going to bounce back. Joe Mixon ran 13 times for 56 yards, caught 3 passes for 17 yards. Bengals had 6 first downs in the entire game. 2 of 15 on third down. The defense tried to keep them in it for as long as they can. I mean, Jermaine Pratt, Nick Scott, Dax Hill, 6 tackles, 2 for a loss and a pick. Pratt and Scott each had 11 tackles, but your team has to move the ball for you to win the game. The Bengals at 3. I should have moved on immediately. Take it away for us here. Ravens, Bengals, Troy.
I feel a lot like you. I've seen that 3 clear as day, and I was hoping it would go down the other way, but with all the injuries, I missed it. Totally missed it. It's up to 3.5 now, so we're dealing with a whole new number. But I got some interesting metrics on that later in this conversation. But the Ravens, I adjusted their offensive line down in the power rankings 2 spots, actually, so pretty big move. Obviously, the 2 injuries is a lot to deal with. And you don't see this type of line movement this early in the season. The past 3 seasons, there's never been a line that opened at 3 and closed at 3.5. In the past 3 seasons, it never happened before week 12. So this early in the season to see this type of line movement, I think it's interesting to me. I don't know what that tells me, but it's just something I'm going to follow and track. Ravens won and covered, weren't impressive in doing so. I watched a lot of that game. I was on the Texans. I lost with Jimmy. Tough loss because he felt pretty good at halftime. Lamar Jackson, this is my note on Lamar Jackson, not to be trusted. I feel like I said in week 1, I kind of was talking about it till I was blue in the face. This guy's not a leader. He's not a guy I want to put my money on in the long run. Maybe here and there I'll find a spot, but it's not a guy I want to be backing. And Monken's offense really didn't look too good, in my opinion. They were 3rd, so I'm tracking the average target depth to see what type of offense, schemes these guys are putting together and what type of quarterback trust they have, or what kind of trust they have in their quarterback. They're bottom 3 in their target depth, average 3 yards per rush, despite having the best run blocking grade in the NFL in week 1. So I don't know how that matches up. I don't know what that tells me, but it definitely means something to be able to block so efficiently but not get any production. I think that speaks a little bit to how our guy, J.K. Dobbins, who I also drafted in fantasy, went down. So it's a little bit hard to gauge this Ravens team without more information. They played the Texans in week 1. The Bengals, trust me, I was on the Browns. I mean, the Browns was my favorite play of week 1. It's my favorite team to watch and to be backing in this season. Like I said, they remind me of the Eagles and how they were built last year. And Joe Burrow, man, I mean, this guy looked like a fucking mope. I mean, he was like feeling sorry for himself. It was pretty fucking sad to watch, to be honest. And I've seen him take plenty of L's, but it never looked like this. I mean, they just looked broken. They looked like they didn't want to pull. They were disinterested. It was pretty sad to watch. And Joe Burrow led the NFL in week 1 in poor passes. He had 15 poor passes, meaning passes that were completely off target. I think that speaks a little bit of volumes to the Browns defense too. He's not going up against no Joe Schmoes. But I think that this is where you want to back the Bengals coming off that terrible loss. It's where you just want to buy a team like the Bengals and a quarterback like Joe Burrow. I mean, nobody's going to want the Bengals after that loss, and understandably so. But that Baltimore win was not impressive, and it's definitely an opponent asterisk being the Texans and a rookie quarterback. So I want to be on the Bengals. So I started looking at the spread and considering the move to 3.5. And is 3.5 still a good number? Well, if you look at the line movement history, past 3 years, when the line moves from 3 to 3.5, the home team covers at 63%. They're 5-3. Interestingly enough, if it opens and closes at 3, the away team is 10-4 ATS. And that's kind of just to give you a little bit of a view into what I'm looking at when I'm looking at these line moves. I think that's pretty interesting to look at. Right? You're getting a worse number, but you're cashing at a higher rate the past 3 years. I think it's just something to take into account.
What did you think about Burrow's movement here? Should we still have a modicum of concern with the calf strain? I want to back the Bengals. I want him first half for sure. I want to bounce back, but we've never really seen anything like what he just went through. And now he's the $275 million man who didn't have a preseason, who's dealing with, his calf and a late start to his, program, or at least an interruption to the program. Was there concern watching him move around? Is there concern? Generally with Burrow, we'd be certain of a bounce back. Are we certain here?
I'm not certain about it after seeing what I've seen. I mean, I said he looked disinterested. I guess it could still be that lingering injury. It's just maybe it frustrated him past a point where he just broke down and he just fucking gave up. I mean, it was really, really bad to watch Joe Burrow this Sunday. I think that's a really good point. I mean, if that calf injury is lingering, it's going to be the same thing when he's going up against solid defenses. And the Ravens, I mean, they had a solid defense in week 1. Their defensive line is not very impressive, their roster, but God, it's just tough. I want to be on the Bengals too, and I think I like the Bengals first half, if anything, just that 3.5. I know it scares me, even though the line movement would say that it's better that it's closing at 3.5.
Newkirk said he didn't see the game. Was he that bad? 14 of 31 for 82 yards, 6 first downs in the entire game. At this point, first off, I'm going to need more time with the Bengals. I'd like to watch a little bit more of Burrow. I'd like to watch a few more clips of what happened on Sunday and then see him in practice. And then secondly, I want Andrews to be announced in. I think that will help the line here. But at this point, I guess I'm going to have to not move on it, even though the 3.5 is telling, and the Bengals -2.5 first half is, if we weren't dealing with any question marks around his calf, I mean, I would have already bet it. Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna if it's the calf injury, it's gonna lack. He's gonna lack in being able to compete. He's a competitor. I mean, the old Joe Burrow before he got paid was a fucking competitor, fiercely. If he's not right, if his calf's off, it's still hurting and bothering him. Man, I would hate to have my money on the Bengals.
I still expect to have money on them, but I just need a little bit more. I do. I expect to have them first half at -2.5. It's juiced about -120, 121. So I need more information on that one. Let's move on.